Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Programs Media once again. I'm your host, Ninos Hajirusu. Thank you all for tuning in. I also want to say thank you for those of you who have been continuing to view the videos and the series, the short series I'm trying to do, the evangelistic series, answering some important questions regarding Christianity. Last time we talked about who God is, or what God is, rather. And today we're going to talk about a subject which not many people really want to talk about. And obviously, it's not the most popular subject, but it is necessary to talk about. If I was to ask you, where does evil come from? It's a very difficult question to ask, isn't it? Where did evil come from? Now, obviously, there have been many philosophers throughout the ages who've tried to tackle that question. The title of this video that I'm making here today, it's called The Reality of Sin. The Reality of Sin. Okay? There are theories. I want to bring you those theories first on what the world and the philosophers throughout the ages have pondered up and tried to put together what they think is the origins of evil and what is it exactly. The first one is people believe we're all good people. Okay, what this theory is called the all good people theory. Well, basically, it's this. Generally, this is the popular view that says generally people are born with goodness. Then why do we do bad things? Well, the problem is, they say, and they claim this is the case, that we just have bad influences. We just go to the wrong people and we're just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Basically, this is Charlie saying, the problem is not me, it's them. And if only I could just maintain a distance from the bad influence and fill my mind with the good influence, I'm going to be a good person. So basically, it comes down to this. You are able to be a good person. This is a subject which is very popular. The second I want to tell you, the second theory is you can't stop what is natural. Okay. Now, this idea says, this thought and idea basically claims that the term good and evil, they don't exist. We just use them to kind of describe something, but they don't really exist. So what they're trying and what their argument is basically is that according to Darwinian evolution, people believe that we are equal to animals. And so animals, they don't know what is from right and wrong, and they do things which might be killing or hurting. We mustn't call it evil, and we mustn't call something good, but we must accept it as a natural act that humans have because they're very similar to animals. And that is called instinct. So you can't stop something that's natural. Uh, let's say, for example, if a man falls in love with a woman on the plane, and it's not his wife, and he goes home and says, honey, I'm in love with another person. You can't judge me because I couldn't resist myself. I mean, she's beautiful. So don't call that evil because it's natural. How can you stop something that's natural, honey? By the way, that's not a wise thing to do if you ever do that. Don't do that. The other theory that people make is they actually say that it's all relative. Okay. So people would say and argue, I'll just give you a scenario to understand what that is. Relativism basically is the type of, you hear comments, people say, um, this is your truth. My truth says something else. You heard that before, right? That's relativism. What's true for you belongs to you, but it's not my truth. Um, so in the same way, let's just put a scenario. Is it wrong to kill babies? Is it wrong to kill Greek people or to murder and exterminate the Greek people like the Nazi Germany tried with the Jews? Well, in Cyprus, it's actually wrong to kill babies and to kill the Greek people. There wouldn't be any Greeks in the population of Cyprus. However, perhaps in another country, relatively, it's not sinful for another country to declare we can is acceptable to kill babies and to kill Greeks. Now, you may come along and say, that's wrong. But George can come along and say, no, it's not. Chill. It's okay. Why are you bothered? I mean, I believe in my truth. You believe in your truth. So why are you bothered about it? Why are you bothered about killing babies and all this stuff? You get the point. It doesn't help. That's why it was Martin Luther King who argued that no matter what country makes the argument concerning the segregation of black and white people, he declared in the prisons of Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, in the United States, that segregation is a form of racism because he believed in a higher authority, obviously, which goes beyond relativism and beyond what the government or any nation can dictate. And you know what that is? The higher authority is the Bible, God. Because God is objective. God's truth is objective. And that's why Martin Luther King and anyone who fights for equality takes his authority from the Bible, and therefore saying it's all relative does not help at all. How does mankind then try to fix the problem? This is what I want to talk to you about. How does mankind attempt to try and fix the problem? Well, obviously, they focus on science. Now, let me just pause for a second and just say that it is commendable that NASA in America have sent astronauts to go and do great discoveries. And one of them, which is the most famous one that everybody knows, is sending a man on the moon in the 1960s. Now, that is amazing. If you think about the great discoverers and explorers throughout the centuries, that was something else. Technology has advanced so much since the days of Martin Luther and Leonardo da Vinci. Obviously, things are much quicker for us, much easier for us. We have gadgets to help us live better compared to 100 years ago. Obviously, you can drive a car almost anywhere and you can watch a football game without even being there. Things are faster. And you don't have any excuse of not sending an email to somebody because it goes just like that. And that person could be on the other side of the world. So we do have the technology. Mankind has also discovered cures to cure people infected with deadly disease like AIDS and COVID. Now, these are commendable things. We mustn't deny that. But we still go to the big question. Does this fix the problem of evil? That's what I'm just trying to press on. Does this, all of this amazing Magnificola, does that fix the problem of evil? In all seriousness, I solemnly say, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't because the facts and the statistics say otherwise. Divorce rates have gone higher than ever. Crimes and theft and domestic abuse. Do you know the difference between all the other centuries is that crime and wickedness has increased and has made the thief smarter than ever. So it hasn't made things better. Mankind has the skill and ability and the creativity to do many things, amazing things to invent, but lacks wisdom. On how to do evil. That's tragic, isn't it? That's embarrassing. That is absolutely embarrassing. And here's the thing I want to just press on for you to see that nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody. We said earlier it's an unpopular subject, we said that earlier, didn't we? That the churches today, they don't talk about sin. They don't talk about its depth, its reality, and its consequence. They don't talk about it, obviously, because there's no bestseller called I Love Sin. There's no bestseller that says, let me tell you what sin is and what judgment is. No, you don't find those. You find bestsellers as loving yourself, forgiving yourself, being compassionate to self. I mean, it's not a popular subject, pretty much. But you know what's the greatest crime? I've experienced this. I've been in a church where they don't talk about it, and I'll tell you firsthand, I felt deceived, and I was deceived, and I was robbed, and I wasted my time listening to people who just wanted money and just wanted me to get to church and be a number in their church. The worst and most tragic thing, friends, I want to put that in your situation now. The worst thing that can happen to you is somebody not to tell you reality, is somebody to take you away from the facts and to build this idea that the world is full of roses and fairy tales and it's like a nice cruise when it's not. We live in a fallen world, and everybody would agree with me that we are in a fallen world because of sin. We all agree that there's corruption in politics and in other places, and there is evil beyond comprehension, even undescribed and not revealed because it's so shameful and so wicked. You know, when I look at the television or one of those YouTube videos about a judge and a jury and they're trying to decide what to do with a man who killed his wife and his children and he's the husband, that is sick. That is horrifying for me and that is sad. So, so sad. We shake our heads with sadness and we also nod our heads in agreement that this is an evil world. It's a world filled with evil. Many have tried to fix the problem, but here's the problem that is not fixed. Many have tried to identify sin without actually knowing what sin is. Many have tried to try to find how to fix evil, but they don't know what it is. It's kind of silly, isn't it? But that's sadly the fact. Well, let's turn to the Bible. What does the Bible have to say about sin? God's holy inspired word will tell us what sin is. Now, as a Christian, I fear sin because I know its consequences. John MacArthur, a prominent theologian and a well known American pastor, said this: sin is the greatest problem facing mankind, the one great blight that curses us all. As a result of sin, the world has warfare between nations, conflict between individuals and groups, fear and anxiety, illness and death, and all kinds of natural and man-made disasters. He's spot on. John MacArthur is spot on. When one reads the book of Genesis, chapters 3 to 4, you will see the account of how sin has brought so much damage that we see today, that everything that we see today are basically the consequences of sin. And there's 4 points I want to make. First, sin destroyed the relationship that we had, man and woman, between us and God. Sin destroyed that relationship because mankind has accepted sin and death to enter into the world. Secondly, nature has changed and is turned against humanity. So humanity was called to cultivate and to multiply and grow, but it cannot cultivate as it could do and multiply and be greater as it could do because nature is resisting, because the animal kingdom, nature itself, is all under the curse of sin. Because we have allowed sin and death into the world. Thirdly, it separated people from each other. We have nations and groups, and other people envy another nation, and there's wars and countless war. You can know from the Bible, the first murder. This is an evidence of sin and evil into the world. The first murder that happened in the Bible was Cain killed his brother Abel, and that's in Genesis 4. It brought death to all people. That's the consequence of sin. People think that death is it's just a natural thing, it's part of the order of nature. It isn't, according to God. The wages of sin, says the Apostle Paul, is death. So death is not a natural thing. Death is the consequence of allowing sin. It's the curse of what sin does to us and to our world. Sorry, I need to drink my tea because it's cold. So, Paul was right when he said the wages of sin equals death. And that's what you get. That's why 10 out of 10 people die. There's so many people who experience death. And here's the thing about death as well. And this is why it's such an important topic to talk about, because death has it doesn't choose a different or particular age, no, or status, no. Death comes to us all, of any age, of any status, whether you're rich or poor, strong or weak, whether you're young or old, weak or strong. All of us are subject to the absolute dominion of sin in the world, sadly. Well, what is sin? Sin, by definition, is mostly, there are many definitions about sin, but it's mostly known as a transgression of the law. Now, I'm going to read to you the Epistle of James, and you're going to see the explanation what it means. What does transgression mean of the law? For whoever keeps the whole law but fails in one point has become guilty of all of it. For he who said, "Do not commit adultery," also said, "Do not murder." If you do not commit adultery but do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. Now, transgression, okay? A transgressor is someone who breaks or violates a law that the judge has given, okay? Let's say, for example, you drive on the highway and the sign says you're allowed to drive around 100, but you instead drive 150 to 200. You have become a violator of the law. You have crossed the boundaries that were placed. If you're caught, for example, not paying your taxes and arrogantly ignore the law of the land, you are, by definition, a violator of the law. You are a transgressor of the law of the country you live in. That's what the term originally means here. Now, in the same way, if God says to you, now, if God says to you, "Do this, this is as far as you go," and you say, "No, I will do whatever I want, when I want, according to my terms and conditions," that's sin. That is transgression of the law, which is sin. Sin is also lawlessness, according to the Apostle John. And obviously, it's quite clear that the person who hates to be under anybody's authority is the same person who he becomes a thief and he steals money from the bank and doesn't care what the government say to him. Haters of authority. This man is against the law and against the government, has no respect of the law. Think of the most unjust and unrighteous event or act you have ever known. Okay? Obviously, that's sin. And it's wrong to lie. Let's put it this way as well. It's wrong to have control over your wife by being abusive. It's wrong to lie in order to become famous and have the attention of people. It's wrong. It's sin. God says that's unrighteousness. Unrighteousness is sin. John MacArthur noted, practicing sin is living as if there were no God and no law. It is arrogantly living on one's own terms and conditions, not being bound by God's standards. Let me tell you what else sin is. Sin is also, you might be very, very surprised at this, but sin is avoiding to do the right thing. It's when I know this is actually right to do, but I chose not to do it. That's sin. That's irresponsibility. Sin is also unbelief in God. Let me just be more specific. Sin is the lack of faith in God's goodness or righteousness. It's the lack of faith in righteousness. When someone tells you to not follow money laundering, for example, but you go on and say, no, I'm going to follow it because I see my buddies are not caught and they have happy lives and they're rich. They have the casinos, they have everything. Psh, I can do it. I'm not wrong, but you are. Then that is corruption. That's unbelief in righteousness. That's a person who says, I don't believe that this is right, what you're telling me to do. Actually, I believe in my own stuff. The Bible describes sin as well as something that defiles. Let's just put it this way, it's like a pollution. Sin in the Bible is described as, sometimes it's described as a filthy garment, a scratch on a beautiful face, or a dark stain on a nice dress. And therefore God, when he looks at sin, when he looks at your sin, he's not looking at something pure and lovely and gentle. No, he's looking at something filthy, vile, and disgusting. Sin is, as you would expect, rebellion. Absolute rebellion. It's when you decide how your life is going to roll. It's you are the boss. Let me ask you something. If you had the power to overthrow God, would you do it? Most of you will probably say yes. But that's exactly what Satan wants you to do. That in itself is evidence of evil in you. It's rebellion. It's you choosing to be rebellious against your maker. Sin is two things. We know this as a fact. The first one I'm going to tell you is so obvious. Sin is public. Sin is outwardly open. And we know this. You just have to turn to the history books and you see humanity and you see the destruction, the wars, the drama, and the crimes that humanity has made. Two examples I will give you. 17th century slave trade, where people actually decided to take people from Africa, bring them to Europe, and make them slaves and sell them as property for wealthy landowners. That is a crime of humanity, and it will stay in the stains of humanity. Or, for example, the cruelty doesn't stop there. Nazi Germany, under the regime of Adolf Hitler, convinced all the Germans that the Jews have to be exterminated. And you know, they actually did that. That Adolf Hitler created these concentration camps known as Auschwitz in the Second World War. This is known in history, obviously, as the Holocaust. You see, just those two examples. Even in times of peace that we live in right now, sin is celebrated and promoted. And nobody's talking about it. Nobody's doing anything wrong with it. No, they love sin. It's obvious. They legalize it. Accepting abortion, the killing of the unborn, and calling it good is a corrupt thing. It's wicked. That alone has killed more human beings than the two world wars put together. Do you understand me? Take that as an example and compare the claims that are made by the professors in the universities of Oxford and Cambridge or Yale or Princeton, or the scientists that says our generation is more evolved in knowledge and wisdom than all the other generations in the past. Nothing can be further than the truth. Nothing can be further from the truth, friends. It is a tragedy. You know what the further tragedy is that we hold on to this theory without looking at the facts. We ignore it. We don't face reality. That mankind has displayed more sin and evil from generation to generation. We have the most wicked generation ever. So things have not gone better, but they've gone worse. You try to change the behavior of people in the society, you could try, but oh, it won't last. Because the issue of sin is not culture. Sin is not what, to remove sin doesn't mean you try to make society a better place. No, it's not what helps society. No, because sin is a disease that is deeper. And that's why sin is something inward. It's inside of us. Now, if you're a religious person today, you are going to agree with me and say, yes, sin is evil. Evil in the world, yes. There's bad people and good people, but I'm not like that. That's their fault and not mine. You're probably going to say that. But the Bible is very clear that all of man's problems, they are in himself. That's where all your problems are, because it's within yourself. And it's not from the system or the environment or the education, whether you had more or lack of it. It's not of that. And you consistently follow a pattern that everybody else does. Because here's the thing, mankind follows this pattern thinking that they know what to do. They know what's best for them. We continue thinking we know what's best for us. Yeah, I see humanity, I see sin and evil, but I know what's best for me. By the way, that's the same man who trusts in himself that it's wiser not to tell your wife that you went and cheated her by going and having sex with another woman. You really trust your own heart? Really? You know what God says about your heart? It loves you a lot, that it doesn't tell you the truth. It's your cheerleader. But God is brutally honest to tell you the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. The heart is your control center. Okay, it's a control system that means you have your mind, your soul, your will, your emotions, all of that. Okay. Well, the Bible says that all of those things were corrupted. Let me just give you an example just for a second. Jesus, he spoke to the Pharisees. The Pharisees were the religious leaders of his day. And Jesus spoke to them directly, but just pay attention how he described them. Jesus, in front of the crowd and in front of the disciples, he exposes the religious hypocrisy of the day. And this is what he says in Matthew 23. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. So you outwardly appear righteous to others, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. You know what Jesus' point is here? Don't believe the outward. Don't believe appearance only. Don't cast your vote only by the good appearance. That person goes to church. That person has a long beard and black clothing, and he's got a black long hat. That's the appearance. He goes to kiss the icon. He does this. He does the chant. No, don't let that fool you. Because Jesus says that it's not outwardly that makes a person evil. What makes a person evil, the origins of evil, is within us. Jesus said it in Matthew 15. For out of man's heart, okay, what comes out of man's heart, you ask? Evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, that means sexual sin, theft, false witness, and slander. These are what defile a person. How do you know if someone's heart is not good? Jesus says you will know them by their fruits. I'm going to actually read to you the very verse that says that in Matthew 7. You will recognize them by their fruits. Now pay attention. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? No, every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased or sick tree bear good fruit. So you need to look at the fruits of humanity. Look at the fruit of your friend's life or your own life, and you'll see that mankind has rejected God and that they have sin. Sin is part of mankind. David was absolutely right when he said, "In sin did my mother conceive me. I was brought forth into the world, and in sin did my mother conceive me," says David, the psalmist David. And he's absolutely right, because here's the question I want to ask you. How did children learn to lie? Why do children bully each other and become envious and jealous? Where does that come from? Does that come from the parents? It doesn't come from the parents. That will be bad parenting. It's evident that it's in us. It's natural in us. Now, if that's true, if it's natural, then we like sin. Then we are born, every human being is born to love and desire evil. Listen to Jesus' words. Jesus, who is the most pure, most righteous, and perfect man, who is love, came into the world, and did people accept him and say, "Love is here"? No, they didn't. Jesus said they rejected him. Jesus said these words in John chapter 3, verse 19 to 20. "And this is judgment. The light has come into the world, and people love the darkness rather than the light because their works are evil. For everyone who does wicked things hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his works should be exposed." When you do something wrong and you hide it and pretend to be innocent, that's you displaying your evil. That's evident that you're evil. Paul says that we are sons of disobedience and by nature children of wrath. These are sobering things, I'm telling you, friends. Sin is part of our corrupt heart, which has corrupted our will, our emotions, our soul, our mind, everything. From top to the bottom of our toes, man is corrupt. He's corrupt in sin. And yet, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. That's why Jesus came into the world, to save us from ourselves, from our own sins. Ninos Hajirusu, thank you all for tuning in and watching these videos. If you have comments regarding everything that we have said, please click the subscription button first, if you want to, and just leave a comment on regarding the subject. Leave a comment or a question you would like to ask, and let me know what you think about it, and I will try and get in touch with you as well. May the Lord bless you. With all that's been said today, guys, may you all have a nice weekend. Please seriously consider what's been talked today about the reality of sin, because whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, death is real, evil is alive in you. And if you're not a Christian, I'm afraid that's bad news for you. But there is good news coming, because you've got to listen to the bad news in order to appreciate the good news. But good news is coming. Guys, thank you again, and take care. God bless. Bye for now.